Just overall, what do you see going on here? Are we headed in a more fruitful direction for the United States if indeed everything can be tied down? Because that's ultimately, it seems, the president's aim.
I have the first question is easy. I watch Bloomberg News. That's how I keep it. So I had to
Love it. Thank you.
I had to say that. It's tricky, and you're absolutely right. That I felt on Sunday when I wrote that note, I felt that the week had suddenly given me hope.
Yes.
Because I have been, as you mentioned, I've been quite critical of the Trump administration and the chaos around it. I'm not talking about the policies, but the chaos and lack of process and communication. And suddenly, within a week, we had positive signs on NAFTA. We had positive signs of the Trans-Pacific trade thing. We had the organized or the coordinated missile strikes, where certainly a year ago France and Britain were not involved. Now they're involved. So suddenly we saw something new. Of course, they backpedaled so much. You do with Trump that you never really know. But it seems to. So maybe if you ask me now, I'd say, in the weekend, it was 4 steps forward, maybe. Now it was 4 forward and 2 back, maybe, or something. But it's still
been like that in a sense, as long as the direction is. Because even with Russia, and we're talking about the prospect of a Cold War too, but even the noise over the weekend was that, and obviously we had this sort of apparent U-turn over a third set of sanctions here, and the fact that perhaps the Russians here are going, actually, we want to try and salvage something.
I think that may be true. I mean, the really weird thing for me is that I can't figure out where he stands on Russia and Putin, right? I think it's 2 weeks ago. It was after the chemical attacks in Syria. For the first time, to my knowledge, did he criticize Putin personally? We'd never heard that before. So something, did he give up, or the domestic pressure was higher, or what? I don't know.
What about, you mentioned that maybe there's some glimmers of hope on the trade front, rumblings about rejoining TPP. Signs are that they want to get a NAFTA deal done imminently and wrap that up. But do you actually think any of that's going to happen? Maybe NAFTA. I'm curious about your thoughts on TPP, whether you really think that could happen.
No, I unfortunately I don't. I mean, so there's the optimistic line. I think Marty Feldstein was one who featured that one. He said, this is actually all about intellectual property. This is really what it's all about. I find that overly optimistic. I mean, Trump seems to me to be obsessed with bilateral trade deficits or balances, and then some smarter people have thrown in the intellectual property right, which is an issue with China. There's no question about it. But to think that is sort of all that's going on, I don't think it's realistic.
And his base is not as concerned with intellectual property rights with manufacturing jobs.
No, exactly, that's right. I mean, so you can. This I don't know enough about American politics, but there's certainly a clear argument that you could say. The vote winners up to the midterm elections are sort of China bashing. It's like, it's not intellectual property. Who understands what the heck that is, right? So I think if he's doing this all for domestic political reasons, which is not unusual, he's not the only politician who do so, then actually you should just sit through your midterm election and things will maybe ease up a little bit. I find it a little bit too optimistic, maybe, but because he seems to be so all over the place. But I think also to your question on the TPP, it's difficult for the other leaders to say, okay, we just did this, and now the Americans say, so let's try to rework this very carefully balanced thing. So I think, unfortunately, it's difficult to put the genie back in the bottle, and he burned so many bridges early on when he came to the White House.